Hi, I'm Bri.
I'm Jacqueline.
And we are Two Modern Women.
On the show, we'll be talking about growth, lifestyle, parenting,
motivation, money, and managing it all.
Can't wait to see you soon.
Hello. Welcome. We are talking about a topic that I feel like I am living currently. We were going to talk about something totally different, I feel like. And then I came to the studio and was just like, I am burnt out.
You know what, Bri? I said the same thing. You walked in and you were like, are you okay today? And I was like, I've been crying all morning.
Yeah, I was just like,
let's be real.
So let's be real and just talk about burnout. And
here for it.
Oh boy. Yeah, I think when I think of burnout, I think of just it's real. It happens to a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, the modern woman is juggling so many things every single day.
All the time.
Yep.
And I feel like it almost stems from like, I feel like the society that we're living in now is a lot more welcoming and open. But I feel like before, as women, we had to almost prove ourselves. I just came from a networking meeting where she was actually talking about, she's in finance, and almost every meeting she goes to, it's like one woman to 10 men. And so I was like, oh, that's so interesting. So naturally, I feel like for her, she's like, I have to like compensate for that, or like be overly confident, or like make sure I know my stuff. So
we could do a whole episode on that.
Yeah, I know. But so Keep I feel going. Like that like related to burnout though, I feel like that's so real because it almost comes from this idea that we need to do all the things.
And be somebody who does all the things.
100%.
Because even just being that version of that woman in front of, the room of all those men and trying to, whatever energy you're bringing forth that's not naturally yours, that's exhausting.
Totally.
And I'm sure contributes to burnout or exhaustion or whatever you want to call it. It's all pretty much the same thing.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think for me, this is like a very busy week for me. And it's good busy because it's things that I'm excited about. But I've kind of forgotten to listen to my body, which is totally stemmed from this idea of just like, keep going, keep pushing, keep going. Instead of just saying, okay, do I need a break today? Like, that is one of the greatest benefits, I feel like, of being a CEO of your own business.
Totally.
Is the ability to say, you know what, I can't show up my full self today, and it being okay, and then showing up tomorrow. And I think, especially in the work that I do as a storytelling musician, interviewing people on so many real and hard and just authentic life experiences, it's heavy. A lot. And I feel like a gift that I have and a strength that I have is allowing other people to feel seen. But I also get very emotionally invested.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. What you're dealing with is not dealing with, but the work that you're putting forth is emotional.
Right. And then like walking away and having to create and like put myself fully in their shoes and create their song musically and lyrically, and it's a lot. But I think something I used to be really good at is recognizing and like really knowing myself and creating systems that set myself up for success.
My favorite topic.
Yes. Like I feel like I'm like a really organized person.
You are.
And that usually makes me feel very calm and collected and good, like 99% of the time. And right now I feel burnout, which is just also very human.
Well, completely. And you bring up such a good point. You said earlier, listening to your body. And I think a lot of times for women, or I'm just going to speak from experience, we wait until our body is screaming at us.
Yes.
And it's, something breaks or something, we're physically crying and crying's not a bad thing. But I mean, something alarming is happening. But what I've also learned, especially in my work in human design and, experimenting with that myself, is that our body talks to us way before we're breaking or there's an emergency. And it speaks to us in little whispers. It speaks to us in, physical pains, emotional pains, twitches, muscles. I mean, I know I'm sounding kind of crazy right now, but our body,
but there's like little messages.
You just know.
For sure.
And honestly, everyone's body speaks to them a little bit differently. And that's one of the reasons why I love human design, because you learn how to listen to your body.
Yes.
For me, it's emotional. It's also gut instinct. For you, it's both of those things as well. And so, for example, I said I've been crying all morning. That's actually kind of normal. And
a beautiful thing, I feel like I want to add too, of like,
yeah,
I don't know.
But the theme of it this morning was really around, I have so much going on, I'd like a break.
Yep.
And that's where this burnout and exhaustion conversation really comes into play. I don't know a woman in my circle who isn't extremely tired right now. And I get it, but I also feel like that's a little bit a problem. And so for me personally, I've learned about the difference between task management. So you and I are both very organized.
Yeah.
Got our shit together.
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, we can, run through the day, no problem. Run through the day though. We're exhausting ourselves. So we're really good at it, but because we're really good at it, we try to figure out what else we can put in there, what more we can slide into our schedule, who else we can serve with that gift. And it's great that it's a gift, but task management gets us to where we are now.
Yeah.
And I'm not perfect in this arena, and I'm not about to pretend that I am. But one thing that I've been experimenting with, especially over the last year, is energy management over task management.
Ooh.
And for me, what that looks like is designing my day or my week in a way that, it flows honestly energetically. So I'll give an example to bring it down to earth. So for me, I have, we wake up every day with a to-do list for the day and the week. Some of us are more organized than others. Mine's all lumped together, and my calendar has meetings all over it. But the mornings for me, I am most creative. The mornings I need to take a breath because life and kids. Yeah. So kids. We can talk about that up right now too. But we're just going to put that on the side from now. Being a working person, whether it's my own business or, the business that I'm contributing to, it's like in the morning, if I don't schedule a meeting before 9:30 in the morning.
Good for you.
9 to 9:30 in the morning. What do I do during that time? I work out.
Yep.
Could be 10 minutes, could be 45 minutes.
Yep.
I eat a certain meal every single day. I drink a certain coffee. And so routine works for me. It's also in my human design that routine works for me. And so I do that every day. And that is, that sets my day energetically in alignment with who I want to be. But then on top of that, I know that I can only handle a certain amount of meetings a day before I'm like done. Even though my calendar shows free, I'm not actually free energetically.
Totally.
What I mean? I need certain hours to be focus time. Focus time for me is best between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Anything outside of that isn't ideal. That doesn't mean I don't do work, but that's like prime focus time for me.
So I feel like we're both very naturally like that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're really good at like listening to that inner voice and like learn. I think we both have really, or at least right now we're at a stage in our life where we really understand who we are and we know what kinks like and what our strengths are and how to set ourselves up for that. What would you say to someone who's like, that all sounds great, but how do I eliminate like the guilt and shame of like, what if someone wants to schedule an 8 a.m. meeting for me? Like, and like how to say no. Like, what was that process for you, like, on transitioning and being comfortable and being in tune with you? Was it just practice? Like, what was it?
I used to feel awful for saying no to people.
Totally.
Did you?
100%.
Okay.
So much guilt overwhelmed me, and it was all about making sure that, like, everyone was good. I would sacrifice whatever for however I felt to make sure that the room or my boss or whoever was good.
Yep. And even still, I mean, I am naturally a service-oriented person.
Totally.
Enneagram 2, former, still sometimes people pleaser.
Yep.
So this transition was huge, has been, is still huge for me. I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
If I were perfect, I wouldn't be here.
Totally. Right.
Because my journey on this earth is to be human and figure things out. But anyway, how did it happen? Oh, it happens slowly meeting by meeting, calendar by calendar. It was very uncomfortable at first. I remember thinking, oh, energy management. That's interesting. What if I blocked out my calendar from 8 to 9 every morning and used that time for whatever I needed to do?
Yep.
So for me, that's working out. Okay. So, somebody asked for an 8 a.m. meeting, and I look at my calendar and it says block out time to work out. I'm like, what's more important? That time or meeting with this person?
Right.
And at first I was like, oh, really? I need that time or else I'm going to be blah, blah, blah. And so I'd say, no, sorry, how about a different day? And then, or I phrase it however, actually, thank you. Let's do it a different day. I'm teaching my daughter how to say thank you instead of I'm sorry.
I love that.
She is totally getting it, but it took me like 27 years to figure that out.
How brilliant to learn that at her age and be able to apply that to her life.
She's saying I'm sorry. I'm like,
she's wonderful.
How about thank you for waiting for me instead of I'm sorry that I'm late.
Right.
She's like, oh, how about if I say, anyway, we could talk about
her
kids'
all day
personality.
long. I love her.
Anyway, it was really hard at first, and it did take practice, and it took me blocking out my calendar and reevaluating my priorities in every minute.
Sure.
And sometimes people would ask, what if we did, this is the only time I have. And so I'd go with it anyway and think, okay, like I can reschedule that meeting, and that day gets filled up. I don't get that time for me. And at the end of the day, I'm regretting it and grumpy.
Yes.
And my body feels weird because I didn't work out and I didn't get the energy out. There's a lot of fire in there. And I'm like, never doing this to myself again. And it becomes a commitment to myself.
That's amazing. And I think the commitment to yourself, I totally feel that.
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest thing for me was I just tried it. So obviously it was really hard. It was very uncomfortable. But I think communication was key too. So I would try and be as communicative as possible as I could. So if I couldn't do that, I would just be like, I am so I just should have said, thank you for this opportunity to meet with you. But instead, I would be like, I am so sorry. I cannot meet at this time, but this is what I can do. And I felt like the hardest part for me was when I would do that, I'd be overly communicative. I'd be really kind, use my customer service voice,
so cute.
All of it, and they would still be disappointed or upset, or and that was the hardest, I feel obstacle for me to get over. But it wasn't until I realized that I would burn my energy and emotional capacity out because I would be constantly focusing my actions and my choices on the opinions and preferences of others opposed to myself.
This is mind-blowing.
And honestly, it was the feeling of myself. It wasn't that I didn't care about their feelings, but when I was listening to what works for me best is when I felt more secure, which then meant that I didn't feel as much guilt. Because I was well, this is good for me because then I'm able to show up, or I'm able to do the project, or I'm able to do X, Y, and Z way better because I have the capacity to do so. And although that person is feeling this in the time being, I don't know everything else that they're experiencing. They might just need this and they need a quick fix, which is totally understandable. And so I would always just try and tell myself, it's temporary. You did what's best for you. That's all that you can do. And it's okay to upset other people. And honestly, majority of the time, it's not even personal. And they just needed that right then and there. And I couldn't give that to them, which is okay.
And a lot of times, they don't care if you aren't making a big deal about it.
100%. The right people won't. And you're totally going to run into people. Because I used to, oh my God, recovering people pleaser 100%. I mean, and my goal was to, every person I came into contact with, would love me and be Bri, she is such a light. What a wonderful being. And it wasn't until, and we've talked about this too, notorious amounts of times, but it wasn't until I was I see myself as a light. And that's what matters. Mm-hmm. So then even when I encounter people who are ugh, Bri, damn it, vom, or whatever. I'm sure that doesn't happen. I hope that doesn't happen. But I don't know. You can't control other people. Maybe, and I think maybe, yeah. I mean, if you're out there, I still love you. But I don't know. It's just I feel way more secure in myself. And I think that really plays into burnout. And I think something that I've forgotten to do is pause and like be very conscious and like instead of using my autopilot and being very intentional of like, okay, Bri, it's okay to take a break.
Thank you for sharing all of that perspective. I feel that 100%. I'm sure a lot of people listening have been through that once or twice.
Yeah.
I'd also love to share perspective on what parenting and kid pleasing it feels like and navigating that, and would love to hear feedback, comments, what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you in this arena, because I'm still learning that. But just, the real story here is, as a working parent, typically you work during the day, take a break when they're in school, take a break and do, homework and the dinner thing and play and bath. And of course you want to be attentive to them and give them what they need. And by, 8 o'clock, my patience is usually low. I'm usually very tired, and they ask for one more thing or they don't listen one more time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just need a minute to myself.
Right.
But I can't have it yet. And sometimes actually I take it. And so one thing I've really, really been trying to do, and this is actually the same thing for adults, but kids obviously deal with it differently because they're learning how to emotionally regulate. They're learning what boundaries are. So it's really important that we model them with our kids. And I'm learning this, so not a parenting expert by any means. But just like you told that person with the meeting, like, I'm not available during this time. How about this time instead? I prepared my daughter. I said, hey, during this time when you're doing this, I'm going to go do a workout. And I need you to be okay with it. And I've gotten different reactions in the past. I've gotten, no, like, don't leave me or whatever. And I wasn't leaving. I was in the other room. You parents get it. Yeah. And I've also gotten, awesome,
cool.
Have fun.
Great, Mom. Yeah.
Yeah. And so teaching boundaries, the fact that I have them. And I also, this is huge, is I haven't set boundaries, or I don't have boundaries unless I've communicated them. So I could think to myself all day, this is time for me. But if no one knows around me, then it's not a boundary.
Sure.
It can easily get run through. And if somebody tries to impose on that time and I get frustrated, whose fault is that?
Yeah.
It's nothing to shame yourself on. But if you're not saying those things, if you're not communicating that you need this space, this time, this whatever, nobody's going to know and you're not going to get it. And I used to get so frustrated when people would do or try to run through my time or impose on me. I'm like, that's mine. It's like, you stand up for yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
And having boundaries, initiating boundaries, that's another part of the breaking the people pleasing thing. Because, I remember being afraid if I have boundaries, then so-and-so's not going to like me, or I'm not going to be seen a certain way. And just like everything that you just mentioned, or my kids are going to think that I'm a bad mom and I'm not there for them. It's like, actually, no, that's not what it's about. There's so many ways to be a good parent, and having good boundaries that are communicated well and in a loving way is part of being, I think, a good parent, a loving parent.
Totally.
Because without boundaries,
you are such a good mom.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you.
You really are.
But you know what I mean?
Like, she is. Amazing.
Thank you. Not the point here.
But yeah.
I appreciate that so much. But anyway, boundaries is exactly what we're talking about right now. And, boundaries with other people, boundaries with yourself.
Boundaries and burnout.
If you put things on your calendar and then don't do them when you say you're going to do them, it's breaking a boundary. If you do more than what's on your calendar, it's like, okay, just because you and I have a lot of energy, Bri, doesn't mean that we can just spend it in all the wrong places. That's actually the definition of the generator part of a manifesting generator in human design, is we're satisfied at the end of every day, at the end of every week, if we've used our energy in ways that light us up.
Yes.
It's not that we don't do things that we don't like, but we do more of the things we like, and that's how we feel that lit up feeling, and that's very correct for us, and that's how we navigate through our days. It's another lesson for another time. But just because we have a lot of energy doesn't mean we can just spend it all over the place, because then we end up in this place where we are completely overwhelmed.
Yeah, totally.
And I think too, a lot of us, you talked about emotional burnout, emotional it's the emotional side of life. And our society is set up in a way that we can really just take that part out. Mm-hmm. We don't need time to emotionally regulate. You have emotions, stuff them to the side, go do your job, go be a parent, go whatever you need to do. Emotions don't have a place. And I know both of us woke up a little bit funky today, emotionally.
Yeah.
Still able to navigate everything, still able to work, but needing to work through those emotions. And, you know, in the past, I've stuffed them aside, and that has not served me well. It's created even more exhaustion and honestly physical sickness in some ways. It's just created a lot of not good things. So one thing that I've also learned to do and really focus on doing is paying attention to myself emotionally. There's a lot of emotions there, and I didn't know how much was there until I started paying attention to it and really feeling all of my emotions, which is very scary. But there's so many benefits to it, including being authentic and being clear, just being genuine and real and being able to show up in every moment as yourself, which I've learned is the point.
Yeah.
So my tirade is over.
I love that. No, you're brilliant. It's great. Burnout. It's real.
It's
and
real.
And honestly, it's okay if you feel it. If you've ever felt burnout, you are not alone. Clearly. Mm-hmm. I think that was kind of the point of today, and it was almost perfect for us to be able to feel it while we're able to talk about it, because I think it makes it a little bit more real with our conversation and our dialogue, because it's not us being like, look at all these things that we're great at. Burnout isn't a thing. It totally is. And we both, I feel like, have felt it, are feeling it, and are human. And we would love to hear your thoughts also on your experiences, what has worked for you, what hasn't. If you need support, please reach out, because you're not alone.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Bri, for being so real.
Thank you.
Welcome back. We are here to just wrap up the conversation today and really just give you a summary of what we talked about as a key takeaway. You want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. So my top 3 takeaways in regards to burnout is 1, listen to your body. Learn your body, learn your cues, learn what works for you. I would say the second would be create boundaries around burnout. So essentially, in order to prevent burnout, set boundaries and stick to them. And then the third tidbit is prioritize yourself. You might set boundaries, you might say no to things, and it might hurt other people. It might give people a certain perception, but it is all about you. And it is about listening to you and making sure that you are good and you are showing up as the best version of yourself.
Awesome. And my 3 takeaways on burnout are 1, energy management versus task management. So really putting your calendar together, building your calendar in a way that makes most sense for you from an energetic standpoint. When do you have most energy? When are you feeling more tired? And building your calendar to reflect those things, and also having boundaries on how many meetings you can take a day and things like that. The second thing is the point isn't to be perfect. If we were perfect, we wouldn't be here. The point is to be here to experience and to be human, and having that frame of reference was really empowering and life-changing for me. And then the third takeaway is take time to feel every day. Feeling your emotions actually makes you more clear in the long run, allows more joy and freedom and all of the good emotions that you want to feel, instead of being in that, fine state where you're just kind of managing. That also brings on burnout. So
yes, I love it.
That's it for today. Thank you so much, and we hope that you follow, subscribe, and let us know what you think.